What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. Galway have ran out 2-11 to 12-point winners at Dr. Hyde Park in Roscommon. Galway are into yet another Connacht Final after this very comfortable victory in the end for the tribesmen. Look, listen, in the end, it wasn't the best game, in all honesty, between these two. Roscommon certainly set up very, very defensive in the first half. They were trying to absorb as many people behind the ball as they could and then try and catch Galway out on the counter-attack. And obviously, we've seen a lot of teams play this defensive system down the years. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. And personally, I've said on multiple occasions, I've no problem with defensive systems in Gaelic football. Even as a fan, it makes it a little bit more intriguing. It's a bit like a game of chess. It's, you see a lot of tactics and a lot of different fine margins throughout the game. But reality for Roscommon, it wasn't their defence that let them down in this game, in my opinion. In particular, it was going forward. I think there's too many players in the Roscommon team at the moment that just aren't pulling, up to their best ability. Conor Cox in particular hit two chances wide, hit chances from, hitting shots from like 30, 40 yards. Look, listen, he has the ability to do so, but I just thought it was really, really poor. He gave away two city frees as well that Galway ended up scoring from, got himself a yellow card, got taken off with 15 minutes to go, which tells you all you need to know as well with how he played. And the Smith was brilliant for Roscommon. He's probably one of the only players that can really, and to be fair, actually, Conor Daly as well, our cornerback, done very well. In the first half, Roscommon were certainly very competitive. They stayed in the game and they made it very, very tough for Galway at different points in the game. They certainly were competitive. They sat very deep, made it tough for Galway, forced Galway into a couple of errors. And certainly you could tell quite early on in the first half of this game that both sides probably struggling with a bit of lack of confidence. There was a lot on the line. I think after about like 25 to 30 minutes, there was only like 3 or 4 scores in the game, which tells you all you need to know. Like Shane Walsh was dropping a couple of chances wide. Galway were a little bit inconsistent in their play at different times in the game, and Roscommon were quite similar as well, just dropping a few chances wide that you'd normally, if you want to be winning these games, you need to be putting them over the bar. But I think for Galway, as the game went on, they certainly grew more, their confidence grew certainly as the game went on. I think, maybe Shane O'Neill, the Galway hurling manager, can take a leaf out of Padraig Joyce's book. When you have a player on place balls or frees and it's not really working, make a change, do something different. And that's exactly what Padraig Joyce done. He took, Shane Walsh was on the frees on the left hand side. They weren't working. They were going wide or dropping short. So Matty Tierney comes on, and I think he only missed one, and that was the last kick of the game when it dropped short, and it was from an impossible angle. And at that point, the game was already won. So, and Matthew Tierney in particular was absolutely tremendous in this game. 1-3, got himself that goal towards the end of the game that pretty much wrapped up the game. The other 3 points were all from place balls, but not easy kicks by any means. All from the left hand side at different times, all low trajectory, but they all went over the bar. Fantastic play from him, and Paul Kelly as well was tremendous. Galway had to be patient when they got that goal. I think they must have had the ball. They must have worked about 30 passes before they eventually did put it in the back of the net, and it was Paul Kelly who got on the end of it. So yeah, GA lad there says, I'm not a Roscommon or Galway supporter, but I thought the ref was a bit biased to Galway. There was one chance, I think, where Roscommon, I think they put it over the bar, and they never led in the game, but I can't remember who it was, but it looked like it was a point for me, and in the end, the referee and the umpire said it wasn't a point. Looking at the replay, it looked like a point for me. Other than that, I don't think the referee done a lot wrong, in my opinion. I can't really remember too many incidences. Galway had 2 yellows, Roscommon had 3 yellows, so he was fairly consistent either way. Good win for Galway, certainly was. It gives them a bit of confidence now going into the Mayo game. Look, listen, obviously it looked like Shane Walsh maybe had a bit of an injury there towards the end of the game. Damien Comer, obviously great to see him back in the Galway side as well. Fantastic footballer, kicked a brilliant point as well at one stage in the first half. So definitely a lot of positives for Galway, and like you're looking at their team, and they've a lot of under 20 players in there that have obviously come through. Sean Kelly, Paul Kelly were part of the under 20s last year. Obviously Matthew Tierney was part of the under 20s. You've got Tom O'Culhan there on the bench. He didn't come on, but he's another fantastic player coming through from the under 20s. So Peter Cook was another one. So they've a lot of young lads coming through at the moment. You even think back to, I think Desi Dolan mentioned it in commentary there, they only had 3 players in their starting 15 that played the last time they played Roscommon. So, I think they can take a lot of positives. I really think they can. And certainly Robert Finnerty is another very good player. So, a lot of positives. Mayo versus Galway should be a close one. No disrespect to Leitrim. Yeah, it will be Mayo. We obviously know that. And I think it will be close. There was only a point between them last year. Galway have certainly improved a lot defensively since the Kerry game. They're certainly, they're certainly set up more defensive in some ways. They get a lot more men behind the ball. And they're just a lot more structured in the way that they play. And certainly that will cause a couple of problems for Mayo. And as well as that, you'd have to say that with Cillian O'Connor may be injured. I know Shane Walsh might be injured for Galway. There might be a chance there for Galway maybe to catch Mayo a little bit flat-footed. Mayo will probably cruise past Leitrim with no worries whatsoever. And then that will probably leave a situation where Mayo go into that game versus Galway maybe a little bit flat-footed or maybe a little bit cold in some respects because, they've played, they haven't played much quality, really. Clare probably the best team that they've played, and with all due respect, that's not a Division 1 team. So, Mayo probably going into the Galway game maybe a little bit cold, and Galway could, it's not impossible. There won't be too much between them, and as it gets closer to that game, it'll be very interesting to see, what the scenario is between those two teams. GA lad says there again, I don't see Galway beating Mayo, but it might be a closer game than people expect. Yeah, I think, there was only a point between it last year. Both teams were pretty poor on the day, in all honesty, but Mayo just about had enough. Sean Burr or Sir Klopp says, I'm Mayo myself. Yeah. So look, listen, I think it will be very interesting, going into that Connacht final. I think ultimately for Roscommon, obviously since they've brought Stephen Poacher into the team, or into the management, they've certainly operated a lot more defensively, and they certainly got a lot of joy from it in the first half. But I think it was just decision making going forward. The start of the second half, they gave away a few sloppy balls, a few poor passes at different stages in the game. Conor Cox, like I said before, really needs to take a look at himself, because I thought he was really poor in this game. Hasn't been good enough for Roscommon this year. Hasn't been good enough really since 2019. And I think if anything, he was a hindrance to the team more than a benefit to the team. And I think Anthony Cunningham, if Roscommon had another game this year, I think it wouldn't surprise me if Conor Cox didn't play. But obviously, we all know this is knockout championship, so that's not the case. And yeah, look, listen, in the end for Galway, a lot of positives. I think Conor Gleeson in goal as well, despite that kick out there at the end when Galway kind of, put themselves under more pressure, made a lot of very good saves. And definitely the better option to Bernard Power, who was struggling a lot with his kickouts. Thought Conor Gleeson was brilliant at different stages in this game, and certainly a much better option for Galway. Sir Klopp there says Mayo haven't been tested yet this year. It's hard to analyse both teams. It is very hard to. We can analyse Galway a little bit more because we've seen them play Dublin, Kerry, Roscommon obviously twice now. But Mayo are a very hard team to kind of get a finger on. And, they played Dublin obviously in the All-Ireland final last year. But even at that, like when you look at their route through to the All-Ireland final, they play Tipperary in a semi-final. So it's hard to know like where Mayo are actually at, and we probably, they'll play Galway, and if they come through that, they'll then play Dublin. But what would be interesting would be to see Mayo go up against like a Donegal or a Kerry, because I feel like we'd have a lot more answers to where Mayo are actually at if they played either one of those two teams. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year, but I think for Mayo, there's definitely a lot of question marks. There's no two ways about it. But yeah, I think to conclude in the end, good win for Galway. Always comfortable. Roscommon never led in the game. I think if you're a Roscommon fan, you're probably pulling the hair out of your head at this stage, because it doesn't look like they're progressing at all. I to be honest, I'd be surprised if they even came up from Division 2 next year. Like, you're looking at Galway in there, they'll probably be promoted. You've got Derry coming up, Cork are in there, Meath are always going to be competitive. It's going to be tough for Roscommon to get out of Division 2 next year, but they'll build, and they do have good players in the team, but they do have players that have been there for quite a long time now as well. And it was only 10 years ago that Roscommon were a Division 4 team, so you would be a little bit worried. You really would. But I suppose for Roscommon, they'll have to wait now until 2022. But anyways, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you later.